At the end of the day, checking and savings accounts are garbage.
Sure.
Typical bank accounts are garbage.
Hey everyone, Travis here with Pine Financial Group, where we work together so you succeed. If you're checking out this video on YouTube, you've stumbled across it or you've been following us for a while, please be sure to hit subscribe and share it with your friends. We think it's important for you and the people in your sphere to see the high quality content that we're bringing you week after week. Today I'm excited to be here with Matthew Pillmore, VIP Financial Education. Known Matt for, probably going over 10 years now. And early on I had the opportunity to see his material, and probably like some others, I was a little skeptical. I was trying to understand, what is he putting out there? What is he teaching? And what I found is, when we're investing in real estate or just our personal finances, it's important to be educated and just understand, even if you like the viewpoint or if you don't, is to understand it, because that'll help you in your own everyday life with cash flow, investing, assets, how to use debt and things like that. And today we're actually going to talk about debt. As real estate investors, debt is a tool that we often use to make money in real estate, right? Whether you're leveraging it to buy a rental property, you're using a line of credit, you're using hard money, and there's a lot of different ways that debt comes, right? Low interest mortgage rates, high interest hard money, different terms and things like that. So today we're gonna talk a little bit about why and how you might use debt, and Matt's views on what he teaches, what people should do to be most successful.
Cool, so yeah, debt. I mean, obviously a really polarizing subject, right? And it's funny that you mentioned that there are obviously viewpoints you agree with, viewpoints you may not agree with. Because when I first started to really try and understand debt, it was around the time that I was first discovering Dave Ramsey. I think he's probably the best known debt-related specialist, expert, right? He's talking about debt all the time, thinks you should cut up your credit cards and so forth. Really doesn't think you should be using debt at all. But I'm somebody that believes that leverage is the key to success. I really think that people who use leverage, believe in it, we're gonna get further ahead than people who don't believe in leverage. And I've used it in my own businesses. And so even though I don't really fully agree with what Dave Ramsey is teaching, I still listen to somewhere between 3 to 5 hours of his content every week to this day. And I think it is important that you understand the opposing viewpoint, because you might pick things up that you don't agree with. So let's talk real quickly about my perspective about it. And there are a lot of ways of winning this game of financial success. And this way has worked really, really well for me, and it's worked really great for my community as well. But debt, guys, is one of those things where I believe we should be tapping into debt, but we should be actively and aggressively paying it off all the time. And one of the other foremost leading experts on the idea of wealth creation that I've studied a lot of is Kiyosaki's Rich Dad concepts, where he believes in leveraging and leveraging and leveraging more in order to get these income producing assets. And it registered with me. It made so much sense, but he never really addresses, what do you do with this big pile of freaking debt that you end up with that, frankly, in my opinion, caused more people to lose everything in the last economic downturn than any other aspect. I mean, debt was the problem. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely.
So here's the thing, guys. Debt affects your cash flow dramatically. I mean, most people spend the bulk of their money servicing interest costs on debt throughout their lifetime. It'll consume somewhere in the neighborhood of about a third of what you're bringing in for your mortgage payments, for your auto loans, student loan costs, credit cards, etc. And so I obviously hate paying money for interest. I think interest costs are one of my least favorite expenses, right up there with taxes and insurance, right? Everything else, I'm not here to try and have you cut back on coffee and travel. Those are things we love. So how do we get more of that, but less of this? And that's been my mission from the very beginning. And so we found these really, really advanced ways, which while they're advanced, they're also not very difficult. And these approaches were allowing us to attack and eliminate our debt really quickly while not sacrificing liquidity. And I think that was a way for us to kind of get the best of both worlds, right? Because I didn't want to give up the ability to use my money for other great opportunities. And if you're taking $1 and you can't really use the same dollar for both buying something and paying something down, then what if you could take that dollar, pay something down, but still have access to it when you needed it? And that was the question I had. And so I mentioned on a previous video, make sure you check it out, about the fact that I'm going after this recording to go out and get close on a home equity line of credit. Basically, that's allowing me to tap into the available equity on a house that has been paid off for a very long time. That house cash flows around $2,500 per month. And it cash flows that much because I don't have to service a mortgage payment, right? So if I can pay all that debt off to zero and just keep all the money for myself, to me, that sounds better then what I hear everybody promoting all the time is your tenant pays your mortgage. Well, first of all, I don't agree with that. Your tenant doesn't pay your mortgage. Your tenant pays you and you pay your mortgage, right?
Right.
So if you could keep the money instead of paying your mortgage company, to me, that sounds a lot better.
Absolutely.
But I didn't want to lose out on buying things that I would have purchased had I not taken the money and paid the mortgage off. And how do you do that? Well, you stay liquid. And that's why we're always talking about keeping really great credit, making sure that the banks really like the way you look, making sure that other lenders like Pine Financial, when they look at the overall deal structure or they potentially analyze you even as a borrower, which I know you guys don't do as often, right? You're usually looking more at the deal than you are the borrower. But anytime somebody's considering giving you money and they want to make sure that you're somebody that's likely to repay, you're going to want to have your borrowing strength as good as possible, and that's why we do it that way.
Sure. And so you're talking a lot about paying off properties. So some people would argue you have interest rates at 3, 4, maybe 5% on these rental properties, which is a fantastic rate. And as we look at history, but what you're saying, and their argument would be, why would I invest my money at 5% when I could go get a different return over here? So you want to dig just a little bit more into how you would approach that?
Absolutely. So I look at total interest costs, first of all, right? So I pay a lot less attention to the interest rate than the normal person does. I look at how much is this actually costing me every month in cash flow in interest costs. And so that number is usually quite extraordinary. I mean, more than almost any other place that we would spend money on debt, we're paying the most on mortgages. And so I look at that 4 or 5% interest rate and pay closest attention then to what it's actually costing me on a monthly basis. And then I look at the effect on my overall cash flow, and I recognize that there is a tremendous amount of safety that comes when I attack and remove that debt from my monthly expenses. And so if the economy shifts, right, which can happen without our expectation, it can happen obviously without any of my control, I'm in a very, very safe position even if I lose income, right? Because my expenses are so minimal. So while I would say, yes, that's true from a mathematical standpoint, seeking higher returns is important. I would also say that it's also going to be really, really important for somebody to analyze their ability to adjust if something were to take place that is unpleasant.
Sure. And so as we talk about paying down debt but maintaining liquidity, I too have used HELOCs on rental properties. One, because it's always easier to get a loan when you aren't looking for it, right? And so if you have something with a lot of equity in it, there's an opportunity to tap that HELOC. But we also have to remember that although you may pay a little bit of cost in obtaining the HELOC, you're not paying interest unless you use it.
That's exactly right.
And to your teaching, you would only be using it if you were going to get a better rate of return than what you would pay for the money when accessing it.
Bingo. And so the HELOC today is costing me all of $199, right? So $250,000 worth of access on, something that only costs $199. I only pay on it if I'm actually using the money. It's just sitting there available for use at any point in time. This actually puts us well over $1 million of availability that we now have access to if we ever choose to buy something. The other part that I think is important for people to know is that these types of tools, which we call debt weapons on our channel, you guys can visit that on YouTube at VIP Financial Ed. These debt weapon tools are considered eligible down payments, right? So if I wanted to put 20% down on an investment property, the HELOC is considered something that is eligible for that as well. So these are really, really flexible, dynamic tools that not only allow us the ability to go out and purchase new income streams, but they also give us the ability to manipulate the way that our debts are being serviced now, so that if we have higher interest cost debts somewhere else, we can easily consolidate that, if you will, into better types of tools in order to free up lots and lots of cash flow there as well. So lots of ways of increasing cash flow, lots of different ways of accelerating the elimination of your balances. One of my favorite ways is what a lot of people refer to as velocity banking. And this is basically where you're replacing your typical checking and savings accounts with something like a home equity line of credit, which is completely liquid, it's revolving, and when I earn money, I can simply park it against any debt balances that I might be servicing on that HELOC to reduce the average daily balance and prevent interest costs, and pull it back out as needed, just like I would if I was putting it into checking and savings. At the end of the day, checking and savings accounts are garbage.
Sure.
Typical bank accounts are garbage. So you guys are gonna have to find these really cool ways of working around typical banking and sort of hacking that industry in order to come out ahead. And we do that by just simply turning the banks against each other. It's great.
Well, that's great. So Matt covered a lot of information today, and we're going to have a series of videos, including Matt and his information from VIP Financial Education. So thank you, Matt, for joining us. Make sure you check out his page, as he mentioned, and you'll see it right here, or maybe you'll see it right here.
Or maybe down here.
Yeah, or over there. Yeah.
It'll be somewhere.
Be sure to like, share, and comment so we can interact with you on the social channels. Thank you.